my gosh, Ireland, you look so stupid. Well, you know who made me look this stupid? You guys. I went to Target, unfortunately, but I did go to Target to buy this shirt for $15, a reasonable price. And it was gone. There was nothing Stranger Things related because you guys bought it all. And that's your fault. So I had to go to Hot Topic like a nerd to buy this shirt for $30. I'm taking this back. There's no way I'm keeping this. And it's all your fault. Let's get started. I have water, I have Doritos, and I'm dressed as Mike Wheeler. This is 23 pages of notes concerning my thoughts on every season of Stranger Things as it relates to Mike Wheeler and Will Byers. Stranger Things is a television show created by Matt and Ross Duffer. The plot centers on the 1980s in Hawkins, Indiana, where a girl with superpowers opens a gateway between the Earth and the Upside Down. Listen to this. The first season was released on Netflix on July 15th, 2016. The second season was released a year later in October 2017. The third season was released in July 2019, a full 2 years later. The fourth season was released in 2 parts in May and July of 2022. Once again, a full 2 years later. And now the fifth and final season is being released in 3 parts in November and December 2025, marking another full 2 years, amounting to an almost 10-year gap between the first and final season. While the last season has been given genuine criticism for the length of production, the clunky dialogue, and the normalization of the once terrifying Upside Down, this season has been breaking records for Netflix. The last episode of Part 1, Episode 5, was rated their highest reviewed episode of the series, and the show opened with 59.6 million views. But alas, we only have one question on our mind now. How is it going to end? This is one of the most popular shows with the most diverse fan base of literally the 20s. Like, this show is so popular with such a diverse fan base and mass appeal. And many people have theorized that it's going to end in a D&D game. But Matt and Ross Duffer have already said that they would not be doing that. They said that would be the equivalent of it's all a dream. We've known where we've been going for a while now, and we feel comfortable with it. Hopefully, it satisfies everyone. We'll see. So if they know where they might be going, then there must be some hints. And I think that hint comes in the form of our beloved Mike Wheeler. Get it? Because I'm dressed as Mike. Mike drop, get it? Now, when you think of Mike Wheeler, you probably think of him being a leader, probably think of loyalty, and probably yearning for your best friend who you can't confess to because they don't know you're gay, right? You guys think of that? I think of that. Byler is the ship name between Mike Wheeler and Will Byers, but it's just their last names. So Nancy and Jonathan are Byler too, right? No, they're Jancy for some reason. I don't know. I mean, Jancy is cute. I just feel like Byler is both of their last names. So regardless, we are going to talk about Byler. We are going to talk about Byler from season 1 to season 5. Welcome to Byler lore. Class is in session. I am your self-insert teacher who is not as fine as Mr. Scott. I can't even get through this line. I am your self-insert teacher who is not as fine as Mr. Scott Clark himself. Amen. But there are a few rules to Byler lore. Rule 1 is, like a brush of the knee, a bump of the elbow, and a shared look. Rule 2 is D&D is code for gay feelings, and growing up is the pressure of heteronormativity. Rule 3, boyfriends lie all the time, especially to girlfriends. And Rule 4, friends don't lie. Some terms you should know before we begin: media literacy, the ability to critically analyze stories presented in mass media and to determine their accuracy or credibility. Basically, this is the idea that stories have wider context. They don't just literally mean whatever they're telling you. For example, Trolls, is it 2 or 3? 2, Trolls 2 is an allegory for racism. Gay coded, the attribution of stereotypically queer traits to fictional characters without explicitly stating their gender and sexual identity. A lot of the time, this is because of the Hays Codes from the 1930s, which basically prohibited portrayals of homosexuality. So artists, writers, They had to get creative about how they told stories, and one of the ways that they did this without upsetting studio execs was to make them gay coded. Are you guys ready? Let's get into it. Like my outfit, it's okay. This is very Mike Wheeler season 4 for the 2 episodes that he wears.
Get on with it.
I'm gonna get on with it. Sorry. All right. Season 1 takes place in 1983, where we get the vanishing of Will Byers, November 6, 1983. The party has a 10-hour D&D session where Will rolls a 7, which does not save him from the Demogorgon. Will vanishes that night while biking home. Most people around town assume he was hate crimed. Joyce tells us this when she says that Lonnie thought that Will was gay. Joyce, Jonathan, and Mike are shown to be particularly distraught over Will's death in comparison to other people who are able to move on with their life. Speaking of Mike, at dinner, Ted makes a homophobic remark about Will, and he says, "See what happens, Michael?" Essentially saying that it was Will's fault that he potentially got hate crimed, or, we know he's missing, and giving Michael a reason to not be gay, because Ted assumes that his son could possibly be gay. And then Mike says, "I'm the only one acting normal around here. I'm the one that cares about Will." But as we'll come to see, his level of care is not normal for a friend. Of course, you should care about your friends, but the fact that Mike thinks some of these things are normal is why this line is so important. As he gets older, he becomes more aware of his level of care towards Will, and he represses it. Okay. Later on in this season, when interviewed by the police, he says, "Our son with a girl," and expresses surprise that Mike could ever be in a relationship with a girl. Now, this could be 2 things. Of course, one leans more to my theory, and the other one is just kind of Ted being a jerk. The first one is that Mike is such a loser and nerd that he could never get a girl, but the other one is implying that Mike is gay. Like Ted wouldn't be surprised if he saw him with a boy. When being interviewed by Hopper, Mike is selected as the person to tell him all the information that he knows about Will, and the party investigates the woods around Mirkwood where Will lives. So, Elle's introduction. Let's talk about this. Elle is characterized as a person with a shaved head, baggy clothes, brown eyes, and hair. She initially has a striking resemblance to Will, so much so that Benny calls up social services to report Elle because Benny is under the assumption that Elle is the missing boy that's been going around town. But Dr. Brenner, who has tapped the phone lines, shows up instead. Another important thing that we know about Mike's relationship with Elle is that she's mostly kept kind of secret. His parents and friends do not really have a solid foundation with Elle, and Mike tends to isolate her. Mike isolates her until season 3, where she has a friendship with Max, who opens up to herself and being more independent. All of this about their relationship is very gay-coded and sets up something that I will speak about more in season 4. Mike does dress her up, does a dress-up scene where he uses Nancy's clothing to turn her into a stereotypical girl. It's actually a really cute scene, not gonna lie. The boys at school make fun of Mike, and Mike actually pushes them to the ground. Elle defends them when it looks like the bullies are going to attack him by making them wet themselves. All right, the coming out talk between Mike and his mom. Nancy, I think it's important to put in a little bit of context. Nancy talks to Jonathan about the family kind of dynamic between the Wheelers. Nancy says to Jonathan, she says, "I don't think my parents ever loved each other. My mom was young, my dad was older, but he had a cushy job, money, and came from a good family. So they bought a house at the end of the cul-de-sac and started their nuclear family." So once again, we have this very stereotypical family, something that blends in with the norm and very much wants their children to follow into that same footstep. Mike obviously is hiding Eleven at this point to protect her from his family calling social services. So in a scene with Karen, Elle is hiding in a closet upstairs, and Karen says, "All this that's been going on with Will, I can't imagine what it's been like for you. I want you to feel like you can talk to me." I never want you to feel like you have to hide anything from me. I'm here for you. And this will become more important in season 4. Right then, we hear a thump coming from Mike's closet, which we know is Elle. But if we strip this scene of context, we could reason that this is him desiring to come out of the closet, like he's knocking to let that part of himself out to his mom. But the door is locked and he's unable to. And this line becomes more important in season 4. Next page. Okay, Will is dead? So they see a fake body being dragged out of the local quarry, and Mike gets really upset at 11 because he thinks that she misled him to believe that Will is still alive. Mike rides home in tears, and this will become important later, he hugs his mother. This scene becomes important in season 3. In the basement, Mike grieves Will's death as he looks at Will's drawings that he made for him. And as Elle tampered with his radio, Mike berated her and accused her of lying about Will being alive, even saying that Lucas was right about her. And basically the party splits up over this huge fight that Elle has been lying to them the whole time. And Elle is really just scared about going back to the lab. I mean, she escaped this place. She doesn't really know what they're doing all these experiments for. She's a kid. She doesn't want these other kids to get into the same situation that she was. Just then, Mike hears the sound of Will's voice playing over the radio saying, "Should I stay or should I go?" Elle used her powers to contact Will. Mike realizes that Will is still alive, and Elle confirms that he is hiding in Castle Byers. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Should I Stay or Should I Go? This is the song that Jonathan plays for Will when Lonnie and Joyce fight, and it's to calm Will. It references a constant battle that's going on in Will's mind. Should he obey the status quo or leave it entirely to be accepted? The end of the song kind of conveys that no matter what, there's going to be trouble, no matter where he is. So here are some lines. "If I go, there will be trouble. And if I stay there will be double." And of course, the song references Mike a little bit. Here are a couple of lines. 1, "If you say that you are mine, I'll be here till the end of time." 2, "If you want me, set me free, exactly whom I'm supposed to be." 3, "It's always tease, tease, tease. You're happy when I'm on my knees." And 4, "If you want me off your back, well, come on and let me know." So a lot of it kind of revolves around Will kind of wanting Mike to reject him to fulfill his deepest insecurity that he does not belong in this world. The lyrics are, "If you don't want me," because Will is insecure that Mike does not want him. But if Mike likes him back, well, then he'll be here till the end of time. Almost like time after time, he'll be there. We'll get more into that later. While the song is a battle for Will trying to find acceptance in society, it also kind of encapsulates his love for Mike. Cliff. Okay, so Mike and Dustin search the woods again after the whole party is kind of like broken up, and the bullies catch up to them. They go to the place where Will's fake body was recovered. One of the bullies pulls out a knife on Dustin and basically threatens Mike to jump off the cliff in order to spare Dustin's life. He does, but he is saved by Elle. Now, I don't have to point out the fact that Mike is potentially taking his own life in the same place that Will is perceived to have passed away, even though we know it's fake. But this is a fact that people who are LGBTQIA are more likely to have this happen, especially when they're young, 10 to 14, which makes it the second leading cause of death among young people at age 10 to 14, and the third leading cause of death in young people 15 to 24, according to the Trevor Project. So I don't really have to explain why that's kind of related to gay coding. A lot happens in the in-between, and not all of it is Byler related, so I'm gonna try to go quickly. A lot happens, but essentially Will is taken by the Demogorgon from Castle Byers, and we know it was by Vecna, who alien style sticks a little tendril down his throat, okay weirdo, and tries to convert him into the hive mind. Hop and Joyce, though, they find him, take the tendril out, and that seems to kill the little monster thing, or the little tendril thing. Will survives. The older love triangle of Nancy, Jonathan, and Steve will come back to them. I'll try to get rid of the monster. Steve has an epic scene where, keeps hitting it. And that leaves the young party of kids in the pool where they first, in the school where they first tried to contact Will. They have a makeshift tank, a little swimming pool 11 can use to contact Will, and they're still in the school. So, or while they're waiting for reinforcements or something, Dustin gets pudding, and Mike and Elle are left alone, where they have their first kiss. Mike leads into this very awkwardly and says that they will be family, which is something that Elle desperately wants, before saying that they should be more romantic than family. It's very odd. So he says, I was thinking, I don't know, maybe we can go to the snowball together? I've never been, but I know you're not supposed to go with your sister. You go to school dances with somebody that you like. He stutters more before kissing Elle. So he kind of suggests that you're not supposed to go with your sister. And Elle has some dialogue like, oh, well, so I'll be like your sister, you'll be my brother. And Mike says, no. So it's a little bit weird. And I think in this scene, Elle doesn't have her blonde wig on, so she reads as a little boy who's perfect for Mike to explore his sexuality without stigma that's associated with it. So even though she kind of looks like a boy, and I'm not saying this as in like, oh, girls can't look like that. It's more of in a gay coding way, and this is an analysis. I'm not saying anything this is me analyzing the scene. In a gay coding context, Elle still presents as a boy and is perfect for Mike to explore his sexuality because he is questioning it. Nancy says to Mike after the scene, I thought you were acting weird, but I thought it was because of Will. And Mike responds, I thought you were acting weird too. I thought it was because of Steve. Do you like Jonathan now? Okay, so we have two people stuck in a love triangle. Two wheelers stuck in a love triangle. This is a parallel to show that these love triangles are not only intentional, but the same thing is happening to Mike. They are correlated, not directly, but they are but to show what's happening to Mike, that Mike is also in a love triangle similar to Nancy. Mike is connected to two love triangles, Nancy, Jonathan, and Steve, and then down the line we'll see the other one. All right, anyway. Now this would make Elle, Steve, Mike, Nancy, and Will, Jonathan, which makes sense because they're siblings, so they have the same part of the love triangle. Nancy has issues saying I love you, leading to Steve and Nancy breaking up, which is directly related to Mike in season 4. Steve is the societal correct option for the nuclear family and everything her mom chooses, but Jonathan, who comes from a lower economic position in society, would be considered the wrong option. In the words of Lizzie McAlpine, Steve is stable and Jonathan is deep. This is why the Stranger Things as an IP is so filled with couples, because most of them have some socially unacceptable nature about them. We have an interracial one, an interfaith one with Dustin and Susie, and we'll talk more about this in season 3, season 4, and 5. Next. It's getting sweaty up right here. Will is in the hospital. The agents storm the school. Elle tries to keep them away, but she is weakened from trying to contact Will. They hide in a classroom. Elle pins the monster against the wall with her powers and then says goodbye to Mike before using all her power to send the monster presumably to the Upside Down, but she sends herself as well. And Mike is very distraught. Will is in the hospital. Mike is the first one to be at his side after Jonathan and Joyce, and he hugs him. He gets carried away telling Will all of the crazy adventures that they just went on. And when Will coughs, Mike asks him if he's okay, and Will says, "It got me, the Demogorgon." Mike says, "It's okay, it's dead." And that's supposed to comfort Will. Dustin says that Elle is a wizard, possibly because her powers are learned. I don't know, that's just, I just thought about how that's interesting. In the ending of season 1, which ends on Christmas Eve, you say. What an interesting date. Isn't that interesting? Anyway, the boys run another D&D campaign in Mike's basement, and they encounter the Thessal Hydra, which they are able to defeat with Will's fireball spell. Steve and Nancy are back together. Elle is still missing. And Will coughs up a slug at dinner and keeps it a secret. We get a scene of the warmth of the Byers family home and fade out to a window where it is cold to emphasize that the mind flayer is still out there. So this season sets up Mike and Will's dynamic really well and very clearly. Mike sees himself as some protector of Will. Will is innately creative, and it's something that you can tell that Mike really admires about him. And he puts up his drawings all around the basement and has a pile of them in season 4. All of the party kind of has Will's drawings, but Mike has the most, and he has a pile. So anyway, getting into my theories just based off of season 1. I hypothesized that in true D&D fashion, I think we'll take the whole party to kill Vecna, but this could be foreshadowing that Will is going to have to be ultimately the one to land the final blow, using his powers to defeat Vecna for good. But my theory is that in doing so, it will kill 11, but we'll get to that in a later season. I don't know. I don't want 11 to die, but that's my theory. All right, we have a few gates to get to. We have color gate. Mike wears some blue in this season. Will doesn't really wear a whole lot of yellow that's noticeable, but there's a few accent colors of yellow. So that is part of color gate. Color gate is the idea that Mike is blue and Will is yellow. And then we have soft voice gate. I don't know if this is a real gate, it's just fun to say. But soft voice gate is the idea that Mike uses a soft voice for Will that he uses nobody, not even Elle. And it's not so much of a theory as an observation, because he really doesn't talk to anybody else in a soft voice, which just goes to show how much his relationship between him and Will differs. I ate the Doritos. Okay. Season 2, 1984. Elle is still gone. Mike spends his time in between the last season and the second season trying to contact Elle. He would speak to her every night, and now the boys are spending more time at the arcade. In one shot, above Lucas is a sign for a Miss Pac-Man arcade game to symbolize his relationship with Max that's going to be unfolding in the season. And Dig Dug is above Dustin as a symbol of him being single romantically. And then Mr. Pac-Man is above Mike and Will. So anyway, when Mike goes home to eat dinner with his family, he is asked to give up some of his toys. And this is a reference to rule number 2. A representation of growing up and not getting rid of his childhood is related to D&D. So it's kind of like a game. Toys are kind of associated with childhood in the same way D&D is. So those gay feelings he's being asked to give up. This makes Mike upset. However, we get to Hopper, who is strictly ordered not to make contact because Dr. Brenner might be on the signal. Elle defies Hopper. Elle defies Hopper's no contact rule, mostly because she wants to be involved with Halloween because she is a kid. And also, she has a fondness for candy, which we know she likes sweets. She finds Mike at school where he sees Max and Mike playing on a skateboard. Elle gets upset, thinking that he has a new girlfriend, and makes Max fall on her skateboard, and Mike knows that that's something Elle could do and tries to find her, but she's not there. Halloween. Mike and Lucas are both dressed as Venkman from Ghostbusters. This is because both of them have love interests through the season. We are led to believe that that love interest is Elle. The party plus Max, because she's not in the party yet technically, go trick-or-treating, and Mike is upset that another girl is in their party. Will doesn't really care because he wants everyone to be happy. Will has a vision, and Mike is there to comfort him. Mike says he's going to take him home, but he really takes him to his basement, and Will tells him about the vision, and then we get this iconic line, "Hey, well, if we're going crazy, then we'll go crazy together, right?" Will has been seeing a doctor who is linked to Hawkins' lab. After a lot of hijinks, Will is rushed to the hospital after the party set fire to the vines in the tunnels, which injured Will as well. Will has memory loss, but he's able to remember his mother and Mike. Also, in between this time, Nancy and Jonathan are with Murray, who prods them about their relationship. And Murray says, "We like Steve, but we don't love Steve." and he talks about shared trauma in a relationship being important, which relates more to Mike and what he could be going through, that he likes Elle but doesn't love Elle, the Mind Flayer. So we ultimately know that Will is being used as a spy for the Mind Flayer. So the party knocks him out and they put him in a tool shed so he's unable to determine the location. The Byers plus Mike attempt to use happy memories to unpossess him. In this sequence, Joyce mentions crayons that she bought for Will. Jonathan mentions Castle Byers, that they built it together. And Mike mentions the first day that they ever met, which is just so cute. This becomes important in season 5. This whole plan doesn't work, but Will is typing in Morse code on a walkie-talkie, talking to them and giving them the information that they need to help him. All right, Elle is back. Okay, so after finding her long-lost sister, Elle returns to the Byers' house where she sees Mike. Mike punches Hopper for lying to him before it turns into a hug. Before Elle leaves for Hawkins' lab to close the gate, Mike and Elle almost kiss, but Hopper interrupts them. Elle closes the gate. Once again, Mike is living through the pain of Will's disappearance, but his expression is unacceptable for Will, so he sublimates it to Elle, and that's the reason why he hits Hopper. Hopper reopened that wound in his purposeful decision to hide Elle. It's for her own safety. He's still living through that fact that Will disappeared on him. Snowball, let's get to the snowball, where all the members have a payoff for the developing romantic interest that we've seen throughout season 2. So do you remember this scene? Because I thought I did until I watched it back. And I remember Lucas dancing with Max. It's very cute, by the way. They're one of my favorite couples. Dustin dancing with Nancy. And then Will dances with a random girl who calls him Zombie Boy, by the way. And then Mike dances with 11. And then Every Breath You Take by The Police plays, and that's the whole scene. But the song that plays before is Time After Time by Cyndi Lauper. And the lyrics that play is when we see Lucas and Max and Will and this random girl who calls him Zombie Boy go off to dance. We hear, "You go slow, I fall behind." And this is an actual romantic song, whereas Every Breath You Take by The Police is a song about stalking. And we know that stalking is associated with the Mind Flayer because Max talks about having a stalker, which is a joke between her and Lucas. But we know that the stalker is not Lucas, it's actually the Mind Flayer who ends up, Mind Flayer Vecna, who ends up getting her in season 4. We also have the line in Every Breath You Take that plays over Elle and Mike's dancing. "I feel so cold and I long for your embrace." It's got layers on layers of meaning, but one interpretation is how they're being secretly watched by the Mind Flayer and then publicly watched by all the kids in their grade. So looking back, we know now that Will is gay, and at first he's nervous because we know he is gay. He doesn't have feelings for girls like that. So why does he dance with her? He could say no. But he looks at Mike when she asks for a dance, and Mike hits him twice to encourage him to go with her and to dance. But the scene implies that Will is asking for Mike's permission to dance with this girl. Dustin and Mike look longingly at their crushes, and the lyrics that play are, "You go slow, I fall behind." But Dustin is able to approach new girls, whereas Mike looks confused when he goes off to find new women, to find a new crush, essentially. Similar to Will's song, Should I Stay or Should I Go, this song talks about waiting for love and desiring an answer from the partner. It's not a one-time thing. Anytime girls or women are mentioned, Mike looks a little confused or completely grossed out. And this will have significance in season 5. So that's season 2. Let's get to season 3. Oh my god. Season 3 takes place in 1985. Now in this season, we are shown many scenes of Mike and Elle kissing to hammer home that Mike is in no way gay. He's not overcompensating for something. He loves to make out with his girlfriend. He loves it. He isolates himself from his friends, and Will finds that funny, by the way. I just think it's cute that he's like, oh, okay. By the way, I won't be getting into it very much because it's kind of too much for me, but from this season onward, it kind of seems like Mike has a little habit of staring at Will's lips. It's a subtle thing. You'll notice it if you're looking for it. We are shown to Elle's house because of Hopper, but Mike lies to Elle, which all leads up to a very comical breakup that Max and Elle laugh about. And when they break up, all Mike does is eat chips and complain about women. And he says, we're trying to solve the great mystery of the female species. And then he burps loudly. And Elle has a similar scene where she doesn't look upset over their fight and seems to be enjoying her time with Max and reads about like Wonder Woman, things like that. Lucas encourages Mike to not give up on Elle and to keep fighting for her. And Lucas also says that Max has dumped him on 5 separate occasions, which is just really funny. But instead of like getting up after this pep talk, he just lays there. And in the very next scene, Will gets upset at him for not playing D&D. Remember rule 2. Mike bikes out in the pouring rain all the way over to the Byers' house to ask for forgiveness and goes to Castle Byers to prevent Will from destroying it. In the scene where before Will storms bikes out in the pouring rain, the real fight that they have is where the real fight that they have in the garage, Mike says, "It's not my fault you don't like girls," which is homophobic. And then he says, "I'm not trying to be a jerk, okay? But we're not kids anymore. I mean, what did you think? Really? That we were going to never get girlfriends? We were going to sit in my basement all day and play games for the rest of our lives?" There's a lot to say about this. First of all, Mike is the one that puts the idea in Will's head that there's a possibility in a alternate reality where they just sit and play D&D all day, and that's what they do. A representation of a place where they can be their authentic selves. But Mike's relationship with Eleven causes a rift, a conflict in that. Not only in that idea, but also in Mike's self-expression and in the party. D&D is the game that represents their feelings, something that they continually revert back to despite the pressure to grow out of. Like being gay is like a fad and not something that is innate, something that they could grow out of. It's a trend. It's not something that's real to them as a person. The influence of heteronormativity tells us that boys grow up and date girls. Mike is trying so hard to be normal that he puts that responsibility on Will too. And this is one instance where Mike is being homophobic because he has internalized homophobia, and so he spews that back at Will, but we know that he's not normally like this usually. And just to bring this up, but this is the beginning of Mike's retorts that whenever Will brings up a conflict in their relationship, he says, "I'm not gay," as a refute to Will's point, despite Will never bringing that up ever. He just asked for things like open communication, spending more time together, because Mike is pulling away. It's like the closet scene. After Elle spies on the guys when they've broken up, Mike finds her in the closet. Wait, what? Oh, after they're at the pool investigating Billy, who is mind flayed at this time, Mike finds her in a closet. He tries to make her laugh, but she is stone-faced. She's not having it. Mike then tries to confess to a lie about his Nana being sick, which is what he used as an excuse for why he couldn't hang out with her, leading to them being broken up. Elle already knows this is a lie. He talks about how Hopper purposefully separated them. And lastly, Mike says that Elle is the most important thing to him. Elle takes all this information and then she uses his words against him. "Then I should be with my species more." She also touches him on the chest. We'll return to this in season 5. She looks hurt, like she hit him too hard, and then Max calls him out of the closet. And I do think it's interesting that Max is kind of the interference between Elle and Mike this season, besides Will. Obviously, they're in a love triangle. But Max is decorated with LGBTQ colors on her sleeves, and she's the one that calls him out of the closet. And then also in a van scene, Mike and Will line up with the sleeves on her shirt, which is interesting. The olive branch. Okay. So Elle helps the boys raid a the vending machine full of candy in the hospital. Interestingly, the vending machine has 3 different types of candies. It has Skittles, M&Ms, and Reese's Pieces. But Mike likes M&Ms and Will likes Reese's Pieces. We can tell because he chooses Reese's Pieces to eat. And then the Skittles are obviously gay subtext. Come on, they get rid of the rainbow every year for Pride, so it is not a coincidence, honestly. Mike is initially confused by her gesture to help them with the vending machine, but then Lucas encourages Mike to accept the olive branch that Elle is extending to him. Mike tries the advice. He communicates wordlessly to Will to leave him alone, and Will kind of doesn't get it, but he does what Mike says anyway. So also, interestingly, Will seems to linger in the shot, which makes me think if this scene is just about Elle and Mike, then why is Will always in the background? Why is he always messing up the cinematography of the two? Because it's not just about them and it's a love triangle. Okay, also, separate point. It's also interesting that Mike seems to need to be told what to do in a romantic context with 11 by Lucas. It's almost like Lucas is straight Yoda and is teaching him how to act as a normal boy. Is Mike really so dense that he can't sense a time for reconciliation for him and 11? Or is it more likely, next page, because Mike don't have this romantic relationship, it's more platonic, that he finds it more difficult to empathize with her emotions and the attachment that she has to this relationship. He needs that constant guidance because without it, he would neglect the romantic aspects of their relationship. But we'll talk more about that in season 4. Once again, a reflection of the earlier fight with Will in this season. This is more of a reflection of how he needs to be kind of guided to do things with 11 that he would just naturally do with Will. He very poorly tries to explain what love is to her. He says old people say it to each other, and then also mentions something saying, oh, boyfriends, saying the boyfriends love each other. And Mike has a big reaction saying, no, definitely not that. Before saying they say it makes you crazy, which is a callback to season 2 when Mike says that he and Will are going crazy together. This is not a parallel because Elle does not understand Mike in this moment. It is the same dialogue, but we come from the scene with a different conclusion. Get that Elle doesn't really understand what's going on, and we sense that Mike is trying to say that he loves her. You're treating her like some kind of machine when she's not a machine. And I don't want her to die looking for the flayed when they've obviously vanished off the face of the earth. So can we please just come up with a new plan because I love her and I cannot lose her again? Okay, so there's a lot to say. I don't believe that Mike is lying. Mike does love Elle. However, he's confusing the platonic love he feels with her with the romantic love, which is why after this season, he's unable to tell her that he loves her because of Rule 4, friends don't lie. This is quite literally Mike going through the pain of losing Will all over again. We know that there's a possibility that Mike is projecting all of his feelings for Will onto Elle from season 1, where she's depicted as being similar to Will in appearance. And Mike bases his self-worth on whether Elle needs him or not. We got through that. Now we're at the closet scene once again. Oh, so the Battle of Starcourt has taken place. Everything has been settling, and the Byers' home was completely destroyed. So they up and moved to California to hopefully have a more well-adjusted life, which honestly, when I think about it, is the kind of should I stay or should I go, opting to go to some place where he might be accepted more. Mike is nervous in this scene. So the party is about to leave and Elle is leaving with the Byers. So this is them packing up their home to go. Mike is nervous in this scene and has trouble connecting with Elle. He brings up Christmas presents before feeling foolish. Once again, rule number 2. Once again, relating his interest of D&D to childhood and the expression of his true authentic self, something that Elle just can't relate to. Elle brings up what he said outside the door, saying that he loves her, and he excuses the statement by saying it was so long ago and it was in the heat of the moment stuff and we were arguing and what did I say exactly? So I just have a couple of thoughts. Why would the writers make Mike forget something that is just so vital? This is a vital piece of information and Elle is about to go away. Now we could cover this up by Mike being nervous to tell her that he loves her, but she's about to move away. If there was a time to tell her, it would be before she moves across the country. But similar to Nancy in season 1, I told you we'd get back to this. You didn't believe me. He is unable to tell Eleven he loves her because he doesn't. He doesn't love her in a romantic context. The scene takes place in front of Will's closet where there's a light on, and when they kiss, his eyes are open. As the light bulb has gone off, it's kind of symbolizing that a light bulb has gone off in his head and then he's had a couple of realizations. That doesn't do it for you. Mike looks so confused. He looks so confused as she walks away. He does not look happy. And when you're watching it without the information from the next seasons, you just think, oh, he was so nervous. But now that we have hindsight, let's get to a couple of gates. We have phone gate. It's kind of similar to the previous. Phone gate is the idea that Mike did actually call the Byers in Lenora, which is their new home in California, but for some reason the calls didn't go through, leading people to believe that Joyce's job as a telemarketer kept her on the phone all the time, and that made the line busy so that Mike couldn't call. Or because Vecna is manipulating things. Also, in this season, we see Steve suggest that Vecna might be a clockmaker, and then we also see some references to Back to the Future and more time manipulation media. Hey guys, so this scene comes before the 11 kiss, and Will is giving up his D&D stuff. Mike is basically asking, like, D&D is code for gay feelings, so what if you want to explore a relationship with someone in California? And then Will says that's not possible, and Mike smiles lovingly at Will. So this is all code for their relationship, so this scene follows rule 2. I just want to reiterate how hard he's smiling at Will. This is the most I've ever seen Mike Wheeler smile. We're about to get into my season. And now we get to season 4. But before we get into any of the character work, we need to talk about the designs, because design becomes really important in this season specifically. The stylist of Stranger Things, Amy Paris, said the bulk of what Mike wears in this season is a teal shirt with triangles. We know that blue is kind of his color. And the stylist for Stranger Things, Amy Paris, said that triangles had a lot to do with LGBTQIA plus representation, and it's also something that Robin's character has a lot of on her shirt that she wears, lots of triangles. And then Mike's wardrobe could indicate that he's part of that spectrum. Also, in one of the beginning scenes in Mike's room, you can see that there's a closet that has a one-way sign above it and a poster of a buff man on a wall, gay coding. And Colorgate is in full force. If you rewatch this season specifically, blue and yellow are literally everywhere. Like, seriously, it's so obvious in every scene that Mike and Will share that their colors are blue and yellow. Let's talk about Hellfire Club. The club is a return to D&D. Remember rule 2. With Will and Elle both out of the picture, he is able to explore his true authentic self and without the pressure of forced conformity, which is ruining the kids. People have theorized that Mike might have a crush on Eddie. If you watch it back, I'm going to say that is a possibility. Once again, someone does not actually have to be gay to be gay coded. This could be in reference to Barb in season 1, but also we're referencing that in Eddie's character. The evidence I found for this is that Amy Paris said that Mike was really influenced by Eddie's wardrobe, which is a lot more edgier, a lot more darkness in Mike's wardrobe. And initially, I was going to be a little bit skeptical of Mike having a crush on Eddie because I don't even know why, but I was a bit skeptical. But when I watched that scene back with the idea that Mike could have a crush on Eddie, it makes a lot more sense. And when Eddie pops up, Fever by the Cramps plays, and the lyrics for that song are, "You give me fever, I light up when you call my name, 'cause I know you're going to treat me right." So the lyrics kind of emphasize how Eddie makes other people feel special, but also it's about like a secret relationship that's filled with overwhelming passion, next page, and desire, which in this relationship has to remain a secret because it's not a socially acceptable one. Remember rule 1. Anyway, back to the plot. Mike has been receiving letters from Elle, and in those letters she mentions that Will might have a crush because he's been painting something that Elle thinks is for a girl. But when we see Will in class, there's a gorgeous girl who flirts with him, and he seems disinterested in her. Like, this girl is so pretty, it's like crazy. Okay, so now we get to the airport scene. After Elle thanked Mike for the flowers, Mike shares in a quick and awkward hug with Will and notices the painting in his hand. When he asks Will what it is, he says it's a painting he's been working on, and Mike says, "Cool." When Dustin gets a girlfriend in season 3, Mike immediately asks questions about what she's like and what she looks like specifically. But when he's with Will, who has a potential girlfriend, he never asks who it could be or anything about her. He seems to have a lot of anxiety over this painting and what it looks like and what that could mean. And we can tell this because it's the first question he asks. Mike then meets Jonathan's new best friend, whose only character trait is smoking, Argyle, who made him feel awkward when he hugged him, only to check his shirt and check the tag and said that he was wearing quote-unquote a knockoff, and assured him that he would hook him up with some good threads. Now, this could be the impact of Eddie's character turning Mike into an edgier person, the edgy person that he always was. But once he gets to California, he realizes that in order to make it work, he has to become the embodiment of who Elle would want. So the stylist basically said that Mike would pick something up from the airport store. So he almost dresses like a stereotype of what a California person would wear. And this is why Argyle says he's a knockoff, because he's lying to himself and the people around him by trying to be someone different and wearing something that he would literally never wear to fit into the ideal. This is also Argyle acknowledging that Mike is pretending to be someone he's not, someone who has trouble expressing love towards Will, but no problem with his girlfriend. However, he has trouble completely lying to Eleven, which is why in this scene, Elle looks at the letter to see yet another from Mike. He couldn't get himself to fully lie to her because of Rule 4, so he instead puts from Mike instead of love Mike. Returning back to Color Gay, by the way, Mike mentions in this scene that there is too much yellow in the flowers. Will is represented by the color yellow, so no matter what, he can't escape subconsciously thinking of Will. Even the flowers have too much of him, if you think about it that way. Rinkomania. Next page. I decided to get rid of the braids. I was tired of them. Okay, let's do this.
I accidentally skipped over the events of Rinkomania, but essentially Elle is lying to Mike about her life in California. She's not as popular as she wants to be. She wants to fit in, and she lies about being friends with her bully, who is Angela. Will tries to tell Mike this, but he doesn't believe him, trying to make everything seem perfectly fine in his relationship, even though it's crumbling. And Mike points out that Will hasn't been acting like himself, and that he's been quote-unquote moping and barely talking, and he ruined the whole day, which is very funny. And then Will points out that Mike has been acting different and how he hasn't been contacting Will, and Mike says he had to contact his girlfriend because Elle is his girlfriend, and that him and Will are friends. We are friends. He emphasizes that, and that's significant about this fight.
Mike and Will speak while they get packed up to leave the Byers, California home. They're trying to hitch a ride with Argyle as a part of their plan to evade the officers who are preventing them from looking for 11. So they want to get out of there. Mike appreciates Will calling him out. Will says, I didn't say it. And Mike says, you didn't have to. They share a look and Mike smiles, but Will looks away. Mike continues to talk about how his relationship is different with Will from the other party members. He continues saying, I think it would be easier if we're a team, friends, best friends. So this goes into rule 1. This is a subtle, rule 1 is all about the subtle ways of flirting, and Mike is flirting with Will in this scene. And when Will turns his back, you can tell that Will is flustered and he thinks he's misreading things. But as he does, we see Mike take in like this very pained sigh because he's cringing at himself because he thinks the same things. He feels like he's misreading things and he's flustered. Okay, so the whole scene parallels how Mike deals with conflict between the love triangle members. With Elle, he deflects from the real issues. He gets heated. He makes up a lot of excuses for his behavior. And then with Will, he accepts his mistakes and takes it as a path forward to improve. It's just like night and day. It really is just completely different. And on top of that, with Will, he doesn't even need to talk sometimes because they understand each other. But with Elle, he over-explains and complicates his message so that she can try to understand his perspective. Now we get to the van scene. So in the scene before we get to the actual van scene, Mike is digging a hole and does a triple take at Will where he looks 3 times before breaking eye contact. A triple take usually indicates attraction. However, maybe Mike is flustered that someone is able to read him so clearly because he's obviously thinking about his fight with Elle. So we can tell that Mike is clearly upset with his fight with 11, and so Will tries to cheer him up by showing him the painting that he's been carrying all this time. So this goes back to rule 2, D&D is gay feelings. Will paints Mike picture of him leading the party and defeating the Thessal Hydra. When Mike asks if Will made this for him, he lies and says that Elle commissioned it for him to make him happy. But there's just like, in the micro expressions on Mike's face, he is a little disappointed to hear that Will did not make it specifically for him in mind. Next page. Mike says, I'm just some nerd who got lucky that Superman landed on his doorstep. Like, subconsciously says Superman, which is foreshadowing, because he would be Lois Lane in this analogy because he wants to be a writer when he grows up, which we know from some marketing materials that came out. Okay, so yeah, that's cute. Anyway, so this whole scene really shows Will's longing for Mike, and it's all a veiled confession of Will's love to Mike, which is something that I believe will become important to another scene in this season. So we'll get to that, the I love you scene, later. Did we not talk about how in Rinkomania there's the in the closet at Rinkomania, which is referring to 11 who is in the closet, but Mike and Will are also in the closet, so that's just interesting. Back to it. Jonathan is not oblivious, unlike the audience, to the love triangle between Will. Jonathan has been consistently someone who has been characterized as knowing Will's emotions and trying to protect him as best he can, so it would be weird if he didn't notice something was a little bit up with them. It's kind of the one consistency of his character. Jonathan is always trying to build him up in a world that is unforgiving to his sensitivity. Jonathan says, I miss talking to you. I really miss it, and I think right now we need to talk more than ever because things are getting complicated, right? All right, a lot more complicated than Legos up the nose, you know? And this is a parallel to season 1 when Karen speaks to Mike and basically says that he doesn't need to hide anything and that she's here for him. So there's a similar parallel in that we need to talk and I'm here for you. whenever you need. We need to talk more than ever. I'm here for you. Now let's get to the I love you scene. This is the second declaration of love that Mike makes, and we're going to talk about it. Okay, so lowercase L is the song that plays over the scene, has a lowercase L in it, which is a hint that Mike might not actually love her, capital L love her, and might love her platonically. Mike and Will fill up the bathtub, so Will turns on the faucet and then Mike puts the water into the bathtub, which shows what Mike is doing with Will's feelings. He is taking them and redirecting it to L. And in Mike's love confession, he says, "And I knew right then and there, in that moment, that I loved you. And I've loved you every day since. I love you on your good days. I love you on your bad days. I love you with your powers. I love you without your powers. I love you for exactly who you are. You're my superhero." Once again, we have this superhero metaphor. This scene initially seems to go against rule 3, that boyfriends lie, because Mike does once again tell her that he loves her, but he is confessing to her under the circumstances of her life and the lives of his friends being in danger. The only way he ever says I love you is if someone is in peril, and I don't really consider that a love confession, but it's also a public display. There's other people there, which has similar connotations to his first love confession, that he is doing this for the publicity of it, as well as a performance of his heterosexuality. That's just the analysis. Okay, so on top of that, so if that wasn't enough, we also know for sure that this is a lie. Mike says they saw each other. The first time that they saw each other, it was love at first sight. Now, in a tweet that the writers have from around this time, they tweeted a wrong answers only, like Q&A, and some person asked if they believe in love at first sight, and they said they do, meaning that they don't believe in love at first sight. So we have the writers clearly stating that they do not believe in love at first sight, but even looking back at the scene, you can see that in season 1, Mike is clearly agitated with 11 and even considers sending her to an insane asylum until she mentions Will. But if that wasn't enough, and we need a representation of what love at first sight might look like in this universe, we have that in Argyle. Stay with me. Next page. Okay, so Argyle is smitten by Eden. We know that the writers do not believe in love at first sight. If we were to get a close representation of what love at first sight looks like, it would be in the form of Argyle and Eden. And this is not how Mike reacts to Elle initially. In fact, in this very scene, Mike looks on with kind of disgust and confusion at Argyle for trying to flirt with Eden, and their relationship getting closer because obviously he's smitten with her. So let me add that Mike also lies when he says that he loves her without her powers. She hasn't had her powers this whole season, and he treats her horribly. He refers to her as my superhero, something that she has already told him is not true in their last fight. And one of the episodes in the season is titled The Monster and the Superhero, which emphasizes how Elle is caught between these two identities that Mike has kind of put on her. He treats her as the monster or the superhero. The monster when she messes up really badly, like she did at Rinkomania, and the superhero when she saves him, meaning the only value she has is a direct consequence of her powers, abilities that Mike doesn't even think are innate. And we'll have more on that in season 5, which is kind of crazy. Of course, this only feeds more into Elle's insecurities that she's not normal and might be the killer throughout the episode, where, you know, there's a massacre at Hawkins' lab and she thinks that she might be the culprit. Okay, so we only have a little bit left. Here are the only thing that we have left in season 4 is that we have a scene of the couples all standing in the field. We have Nancy and Jonathan, Joyce and Hopper, Will and Mike, and then 11 is off in the field alone, and the framing is very intentional. So now we're going to get more into the theory space, and I'm going to go through a couple of theories from the season. So Will tells Mike that he is represented by the heart and he's the leader. The heart is the primary organ in the body. If you don't have a heart, you are dead. So quite possibly, this would make Mike a great target for Vecna in the finale or part 2, possibly using Will, his sister, or 11, who Mike all has personal relationships with, to Vecna him. Like, he's literally the perfect person. There's so many people Vecna could torment because he is the heart. Okay, so my theory is that when Elle writes from Elle, that is when they break up completely, and this is alluded to in the field scene. Season 5, episode 9, Piggyback, where all the couples line up on the field where the flowers have bloomed, but Elle is off on her own in the field where Mike had previously picked flowers for her, but they've wilted. People have also theorized that this is foreshadowing her death. This scene in her constant comparison with Hopper's daughter, Sarah, who we're being told is dead, could be some evidence towards that theory. Okay, so Hop's relationship with Mike is important in this season because they seem to hug at the end and have this very, very interesting moment after the breakup. It's repairing the negative relationship with his own father, and the more he tries to pretend, the worse it gets, which is why it was so bad in season 3. But as he backs away from 11 and treats her as a sister, it improves because Mike is being his authentic self. This is something his real father would disapprove of. He'd want him to be with a girl, even if that's not how he feels, because that's Ted Wheeler is homophobic. Okay, so I think the fact that it turns from Hop and Mike hugging to Will in the frame is intentional, because if it was about Elle, then we would focus on her, and then she would go off in the woods to the field where she sees, or how the upside down is merging into her world. But that doesn't happen. Instead, we see Will, and it's because they broke up this season. All right, so let's talk about some gates. So we have Birthday Gate, which is probably the most important gate for season 5. This is not a mistake. The Duffer Brothers are intentionally lying to the audience to make them think Birthday Gate is not real, that they made a mistake in the script. One of the events of Rinkomania takes place on March 22nd, which is canonically Will's birthday, is a mistake, and that it's something that they'll edit out once they're finished with the series. This is not a mistake. Birthday Gate is one of the most important things and shows that there is some time manipulation either by Vecna or something else that is making everyone forget that Will's birthday is on March 22nd. Okay, so Birthday Gate is the idea that Will's birthday takes place on a separate day, or that Will's birthday is completely forgotten in season 4. This could be because of Vecna's manipulation of time. In an interview, the Duffer Brothers mentioned that they might George Lucas and go back and edit some scenes, but I believe that they are intentionally misleading the audience to believe that the birthday date is a mistake and it is not intentional when it is fully intentional. The birthday date clearly has some significance to the plot because a significant amount of scenes in season 4 take place on Will's birthday. For what? I don't know. People also mention that in this season, Susie references Dustin's birthday down to the hour, which shows that the writers are very aware of when their characters' birthdays are, and they could have moved the entire events of Rinkomania to another day. And also the set is decorated with all kinds of birthday imagery. So what does it mean? I also think it's important that in season 3, they reference Back to the Future. So it is possible that they might have to go back to this specific day, either for a Vecna flashback or something else. This scene is important, similar to the snowball, which comes back in season 4 for Max, who gets Vecna'd. These dates are very important in the show. Lucas in season 5 says Vecna does not leave things unfinished. And my question is, what is unfinished about Will's birthday and his vanishing, which are 2 of the most important dates in Stranger Things lore, and also Byler lore. Okay, so now, after Birthday Gate, we have Painting Gate. Painting Gate is the idea that the painting is a Chekhov's gun that will go off in season 5. The gun being that Will has to say that he was projecting his feelings through Elle when they're talking in the van, ultimately revealing the bus scene to be a love confession. Therefore, we get Painting Gate. I do think that Mike didn't clock what Will was trying to say in this scene, so that is a possibility of how will confess. Okay. Lettergate. Lettergate is the idea that Mike did write letters for Will, and he has been keeping them in this room. And there's also the theory that he keeps it in his pocket. He has a triangle pocket right here, and that he might be keeping a little letter in there because it's kind of an awkward idea to have that on the clothes anyway. So there's a theory that there must be something hiding in there. And it's also based on a tweet from the writers where there is a letter which could be from Mike and it ends in love blank. There's only one or two characters who have been known to write letters and were far enough away to do that, and that's Elle and Mike. But the writers also stipulate that this was not about a couple, which leads people to theorize that it's about two pretty best friends, Mike and Will. So, next page. It is nighttime. Season 5 takes place in 1987. Due to the party losing last season, the Wheelers and the Byrers live under the same roof, which is symbolic and literal imagery of the families coming together in a time of need. In the 18 months since the last season, Mike and Elle are very clearly on good terms, which leads Will to ask, Robin, how did you know Vicky wanted to date? This is a crazy question because in the last season, we just went over in his feelings towards Mike. He was crying in the car. In fact, one of the last speaking scenes that they have together, which I didn't cover because it reiterates what we've already know, is them on a couch talking where Mike is comforting Will. And then, of course, the field scene. So, in fact, one of the last speaking scenes they have is setting up that Vecna is not gone and the party has officially lost this season. All in all, the Will we saw from last season would not be asking this question unless something happened in the last 18 months. Now, this something is what we refer to, I'm gonna have to bleep that. Mike, what the bleep did you do, Gate? This is the idea that Mike must have done something to show that he was interested in pursuing a relationship in some way. Rule number 1, like a brush of the knee, a bump of the elbow, and a shared look. So, getting to the actual plot. Mike gives Holly a D&D character to help protect her. Holly's character is a cleric. This is important. There's differences between clerics, wizards, and sorcerers. So, a cleric can teleport anywhere she visualizes, cast spells of protection, and cast dimensional doors. Something that would be very helpful in the mind of Henry Creel and might need a spell of protection on Max, hypothetically. So, we'll come back to that. Okay, so lots of hijinks later. The Demodogs are opening up portals and going through the dimension door to get Holly. And they go to the Wheeler's house to do this. So once Ted is thrown by the Demodogs, he breaks Mike's closet. And I think it's very interesting that they get the character who is homophobic to break his closet and would disapprove of that action. I feel like it's a little bit intentional to get Ted to do this. The closet that we've talked about in season 1, season 3, and 4. This closet is broken as a representation of Mike's feelings towards Will and how the closet can no longer be an option for him to hide in anymore because it is becoming too obvious how he feels, which it's not obvious to us now, but just wait, guys. Without the closet, he must stand in the light. And what verifies this idea is in the episode Sorcerer, where Mike is unable to contain his love by Will at the end. Like you can tell how surprised and goo eyes he's making at him. So I think it's interesting that the closet was broken and not something Mike himself had to step out of. It would have been more cost effective if they could have shown that imagery in a different way and would not have added another 6 months in production. This took an extra, this one scene that we barely see for a second took an extra 6 months in production. Almost like the love that he feels for Will is making him brave enough to destroy the places that he used to hide in back in season 1. Anyway, all right. So let's get to the first instance of gay love in the show, Robin and Vicky. This is the first time Will might have ever seen this in his life. He sees Robin and Vicky make out on accident and he drops his soda. But it does allow Will to be safer around Robin. Rockin' Robin is her true self, and he's able to ask questions that he cannot ask to anyone else in the party, okay? Robin is gay Yoda, in a sense. The opposite of straight Yoda in Lucas. Now, Robin says that on the radio that she has a date tonight. What the audience knows is that this is Vicky because Robin is gay. But what Mike doesn't know is that Robin is gay. So there is potential that we might see a jealous Mike. This is a potential for miscommunication because Robin and Will are a boy and a girl in a heteronormative world. People will assume they're dating if they stand 2 feet close to each other. And this is a world we know Mike views the world through with his because he keeps talking about growing up instead of staying in childhood. Okay, so that brings us to the Tammy scene. I feel like I'm not explaining the plot as much in season 5 because we have to just get to the Byler at this point. Okay, so just before they go down into the, what do you call that? Going down into the tunnels, Mike and Will have an interaction, and Mike's reaction shots grow brighter as he talks about Will. You can actually, if you put them together, you can see the before and after shots of this lighting. The after, yellow light glows on Mike's face. Then Will tries to send a signal by punching Mike in the arm, or you can't really see it very well, so I think in the arm, which is a callback, or the chest, which is a callback to season 3 in the closet when Elle does the same thing to Mike and he looks hurt. But here, Mike's reaction is clearly him trying to suppress his true feelings. He kind of smiles and looks down before shaking it off and going to the underground tunnels. Okay, Finn plays this very well because you can see him try to contain that smile before leaving. And a lot of people have said that this is Mike being uncomfortable. But the next scene kind of takes this in a whole nother way because obviously we have the pipes bursting. We'll talk about this in a second. But what we're seeing is signals being missed, a miscommunication, which is a miscommunication of Rule 1. Now, what I'm talking about with Rule 1 is that because of the social stigma against romantic relationships with people who are deemed socially unacceptable, partners have to find subtle ways of communicating love in order to simultaneously abide by societal standards and convey deep care for one another in a way that's not too obvious to other people, but is obvious to them. Okay, which is why in season 5, Robin says a brush of a knee in shared looks, because many people who do not follow societal standards have to try harder to read signals of their romantic interests, and it comes down to subtlety. And even though this complicates interpersonal relationships, because many of the actions can be placed down to vibes. Think of this like Nick Nelson. So Nick Nelson is a character in Heartstopper, and basically everybody's like, he's straight. But because of the little things that he does, it leads his love interest to think, oh my gosh, he could be interested in me. This is what we're talking about with rule number 1. Okay, so here's what Mike is saying in the scene. He says, true, in real life, you're more like a sorcerer because your powers don't come from a book of spells, they're innate. Listen, as far as crazy theories go, I've had crazier. And with Elle in the Upside Down, we really need some magic up here. This might be one of the most romantic lines to me. It's just so romantic. Okay, so Mike gives Will the idea to use his superpowers because he believes he is capable of it. Mike has no real reason to think that Will can actually do this. He kind of just suggests it because he thinks so highly of him. And he genuinely does think that he is magic. Tammy scene. This is very important. You need to review. You need to go back and look at some love triangles in the past. This is important. Okay, so this scene has been wildly misinterpreted. Even I initially was thinking it in a different context. And I thought it was a sign that Byler is, kind of just a fan theory. But what Robin clocks in this scene, that's the word they use in the script, by the way, is that she feels like Will. But since she just met him, Robin doesn't know Will or Mike well enough to know whether Mike has feelings for him. So based on what she knows about Will, this is her empathy with his feelings of insecurity, which she shared in Tammy. Everyone is viewing this scene from Robin's point of view, but it really is an allusion to Mike's point of view. Let me explain! Okay, so Elle has superpowers, right? And the one thing we know about Mike is that he is very attracted to superpowers. And that makes sense because he is a boy who is very into nerd culture in the 80s. It isn't far off that Elle is a part of Mike's fantasy, which is typical of 80s movies at the time, which take a male protagonist with a typically boring life and assign an extraterrestrial being to make their life interesting, like The Fifth Element as an example. Mike might believe that this is part of his role in order to grow up, to be obsessed with her, because that is what a normal boy would do. Mike would be Robin in this situation. In this situation, Mike would be Robin. But we've seen the parallels that in actuality, Will is Robin, Mike is Vicky, someone who is involved with their partner, who she doesn't have romantic attachment to, but is someone who could help shield her from the oppressive nature of heteronormativity. Which is why the Robin, Vicky, Dan, yes, I looked up his name. His name is Dan, that guy that Vicky is with, is paralleling Mike, Will, and 11 in season 4. Okay, so now we're gonna get to the only reason why I made this video is to talk about the scene. Mr. Whatsit. Okay, based on Mrs. Whatsit from A Wrinkle in Time, which is another reference to time travel. Mr. Whatsit is taking over the kids and basically planning to kidnap them. So, in order to transport victims of Vecna, the party leads them to a washroom to the underground tunnels to keep them safe. This plan goes awry when Mike breaks the pipe and causes a leak in the bathroom. Mike encourages Will to use his jacket to stop the leak, and their hands touch trying to contain it, but they are unable to as the amount of water fills up the rest of the floor on the room. Mike has no problem touching Will, but when the context changes to something more romantic, he feels uncomfortable because he feels he might be getting mixed signals and does not want to mess it up. Now, the Mr. Whatsit scene is a parallel to all the times we've seen Liquid become out of control in the series. So we saw the bathtub scene. As I mentioned previously, the scene where Mike and Will fill up the bathtub is a metaphor for Elle. And then Will drops a soda that spews out everywhere, which is a reference for his feelings. Now we get to Will the Wise. Okay, so it turns out Will has powers. This has been a theory that has come true. An idea that Mike put in his head. Will kills 3 demogorgons, and Mike looks like he's in love. Surprised with him. And I just wanted to note that it literally says this in the script. I watched this 3 different times. I just wanted you to know that. Okay, so in reference to his theme song, should I say or should I go? This is Will deciding exactly who he's supposed to be. Will decides to accept the D&D version of himself, who exists most freely in Mike's basement, playing D&D. Jonathan in Castle Byers, and playing with crayons with Joyce. So it's all the memories from season 2, which is why those places show up in his film reel. Remember, rule 2, D&D is gay feelings. Will accepts the side of himself that wants Mike to stay and be with him forever, which is a reference to the song. Mike is a crucial part of his self-acceptance because Mike gives Will the confidence to embrace his powers. Mike already sees Will as magical without them, but the fact that he has them now just bolsters his love. It makes it even more impactful. Will's feelings. Will is able to protect Mike in a way that Mike usually would for him. It's the ultimate act of reciprocation, hence why it is the avalanche of feelings that puts him over the edge and not the snowball. The snowball is what literally happens, and the snowball dance begins the slight accumulation of feelings that Mike gets throughout these seasons, and then this is the avalanche. Mike is unable to deny his feelings towards Will. It is also a manifestation of his inability to get rid of D&D and grow up. Growing up would entail pushing those feelings down and trying to be Mike, but he's moved past that. He's finally able to accept himself and the love he feels for D&D or Mike as normal. A lot of people have said that Mike detracts from Will's story about self-acceptance because his self-worth relies on like the romantic reciprocation or rejection of his love. So, but a person who does end up loving Mike, thinking that it will complete them as a person? Elle. Anyway, overall, I completely disagree with this. Of course, this is why the scene is set in place right now, to show that Will accepts himself without Mike. And maybe down the line we get a scene where Will tells Mike his feelings and he accepts those as well. Both of those things, it doesn't negate his self-acceptance arc. Will is able to accept himself as a whole person, which is important, and love Mike. And I don't understand why both can't be true. I agree that Will does not need Mike's love to be a whole person, but he still wants it. And I think it's normal to desire romantic love, but not put it over yourself. This theory would add to the journey of his self-acceptance if Mike was contributing to not only accepting Will, but loving him. And I think this scene is a setup for that. So when people are like, oh, it takes away from his arc, well, why couldn't it just be an addition to it instead of immediately thinking it would take away from it? So now let's get to the little preview. Now, the only thing we see that is Byler related in the preview is Mike and Elle staring at each other, and we might get to see why their relationship is a little bit different. They didn't kiss or really interact much except for a rooftop scene, which is there to kind of before they go into battle, they talk about what the end might look like for them. Both great scenes. I genuinely do love their relationship and think that it's so sweet, but we only really get to see them looking at each other. And then we also see the inside out floating up above Hawkins' lab, which is most likely a rift of a wormhole where someone might be able to go back in time or go to Dimension X or something worse. I don't know. That's what it says. I'm reading what it says, and that's what it says. Worse being that it will spread to Hawkins as well. We do know that it will spread to. Okay, so let's get into some of my theories about where this is going. Okay, I believe Henry Creel might actually be trying to help Max and Holly escape Vecna, or giving them the tools to figure out how to defeat Vecna. Henry still has a part of him that I'm specifically choosing Henry, not Vecna, not whatever. Henry still has a part of himself that desires connection, which is why when we see him phase through identities due to the electrical shock in the trailer, he is different personas of himself. They access different parts of him. At least that is my theory. Okay, now this is the one scene that we get on some talk show where the Duffer Brothers are being interviewed and Steve falls off the desk. I personally don't believe Steve was gonna die, and it's a red herring, and the person who actually might die is bigger than Steve. I don't know who, but I think Steve is a red herring. I'm gonna say that. Post Will getting powers, half the party gathered to talk about a new strategy to defeat Vecna, and Mike is pretty adamant about Will being a sorcerer, not a mage like Elle. And there are very clear differences in those things. And so he basically just says his powers are innate. And not only does Mike say this, but Erica says it in unison with him. And this is pretty genius. The Stranger Things writers like to do this thing where somebody else parrots whatever Mike says so that it doesn't seem as romantic as it actually is. Usually this is Lucas, who also in an earlier scene tries to comfort Will in the first episode or so, but Mike kind of crowds around him and wants to be the one to protect him. So anyway, he's usually rejected, by the way. So Will is about to be self-deprecating about his new powers, but it seems like Mike just has to talk about how this power is coming from Will and he is the magic. So anyway, that's where we are. And now here are some more of my theories about what's going to happen in the either season 5 part 1 or the finale. Theories. Okay, this is the last paper, guys. We made it to page 23. Okay, I think it's interesting to have the second final drop happen on Christmas Day, when the first time that Joy spoke to Will through the Upside Down was around Christmas. I believe Mike and Will's relationship will be tested by Mike being Vecna'd. Mike is the heart, and one of the best possible targets for Vecna. Also, there is a theory that Will may lose an eye because of the framing of him in the bus scene in season 4, and also a lot of the promotional materials for season 5 have Vecna with one eye missing, and that is the Phineas Gage Will losing an eye theory, because Phineas Gage had a pipe struck through the back of his skull, making him lose an eye and changing his personality. Could that happen to Will? Hypothetically. Okay. A lot of people have said that Elle and Mike have so much more development than Byler, and what is the point of putting us through this whole relationship if it doesn't become canon in season 5, Maleven? And the point of this relationship is what a lot of other TV shows that center on gay characters don't have. Heated rivalry and Heartstopper are able to bring in a large demographic of LGBTQIA viewers, but a lot of people wouldn't seek out a show, probably won't watch it, but they would be watching Stranger Things. This reflects back to the audience of what we do when we put people in boxes in order to fit societal expectations instead of recognizing love as it is. We restrict people from being their true selves and make them try to coexist in unhappy relationship dynamics. Mike's character is a masterclass in internalized homophobia, trying to exist in a heteronormative society and the repression of self. That is the entire point. It is bad when we bully other people for being different, and Stranger Things has always been a celebration of being different. I don't know. Maybe Mike isn't gay and he just really loves men with brown shaggy hair, and can we blame him? What we've seen all this time is the snowball, and now we have to get ready for the avalanche. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope to wake up in a Byler canon world on Christmas. Bye, guys. I now have to go to Hot Topic and return this shirt. Bye!